Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, a show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. Super Bowl week is here. I mean, it's been here. Super Bowl week has technically been the last 2 weeks, but we are officially less than 1 week away until kickoff, end of the season. It's a little bittersweet, you know? Obviously, the Super Bowl is the culmination of the whole season. It's the big end of the year party, end of the season party. It's a spectacle. I'm very excited. I'm very excited every year for the Super Bowl. One of my favorite events of the year. And this will be a very, very, very good game. And we're not really going to talk about it this episode. That's what Friday's episode is for. Cameron, the resident Niners fan, will be joining me on the call. But yeah, for this episode, I teased it last week. I am going over the 10's Super Bowls, so starting off in the 2010-2011 season and ending in the 2019-2020 season, which is honestly a pretty fitting way to end, because if you didn't know, the 1920 Super Bowl was the Chiefs going up against the 49ers, and now 4 years later, we are getting that rematch again. Yeah, so this episode, I'm going to rank, I'm going to talk about all those games where I was, because these were my kind of first 10 Super Bowls. I mean, I said it, I think my first one was that Steelers-Cardinals one, and then since then, my full attention has been NFL, NFL, NFL. But yeah, I'll get a kind of little peek behind the scenes of a young Jason and how he felt during each of these Super Bowl runs and the teams going into it. But I guess we'll start this episode like we normally do with the NFL Weekly Update. A few more coaching news, coordinator hires more than anything right now, a couple retirements. So let's start off with the Commanders. Obviously, Commanders appointed Dan Quinn. Oh, God, I felt that one coming. My apologies. Yeah, the Commanders obviously hired Dan Quinn last week, and since then, Dan Quinn has named his offensive coordinator, and it is Cliff Kingsbury. Again, kind of how I felt with the Dan Quinn hire. This isn't a inspiring hire. Dan Quinn made kind of notes of when he was the Falcons head coach that this is like, oh, I got my Shanahan now. Like let's pump the brakes a little bit there. Yeah, it's not a necessarily great hire. Obviously, I think Kingsbury has a lot of work to do. He wasn't a good head coach. Now, being an offensive coordinator, just focusing on the offense, let's see if he can do it. Obviously, they are in a position to pick their quarterback of the future, and I'm sure that they will. With this move, there's been some rumors, are the Commanders trying to trade up to 1 to grab Caleb Williams and reunite Cliff and Caleb at USC. In the Cliff's 1 year at USC, that was Caleb's worst year at USC. I mean, it was only his second year, and his first year he won the Heisman, so kind of hard to have a better season than a Heisman winning season, but yeah, again, I don't really get it, but the Commanders have been making interesting moves, so I guess we'll see what really happens. Good for Kingsbury for getting back in the NFL, I guess. We'll keep going. Got some Patriots coordinator hires. Alex Van Pelt is the new Pats OC, and DeMarcus Covington is their new defensive coordinator. Alex Van Pelt, I'm trying to remember. He was the Packers quarterback coach when Rodgers was there. And then he was the Browns offensive coordinator for the last 3 years. So obviously has some pretty good experience with working with one of the best QB talents this league has seen. And he brought the Browns. I mean, he made Baker Mayfield in his first couple years look pretty good. Got the running game going. So we'll see. we'll see. I think a lot of these Patriots hires right now, it's truly like a I have no idea what to expect type of thing. Again, how much of it was Alex Van Pelt for the Browns and how much of it was Kevin Stefanski. And DeMarcus Covington on the other side of the ball, their new defensive coordinator. This is an in-house hire. He was previously their outside linebackers coach, then their defensive line coach. So yeah, I guess we'll see how he does. Obviously, it's a face that the defensive guys are familiar with, a guy that's been in out or a guy who's been there for quite a while already. So I'm sure that they respect him. But yeah, a couple other. I think the Pats also brought in Ben McAdoo as like an offensive like assistant. This is quite literally the first time in my life where I don't know what to expect from the coaching. Like, I don't know what to expect from the coaches in New England right now. With Bill and with McDaniel, it's like you always knew that it was going to be, we're going to play great defense. Again, it's what I've been preaching since I've had this podcast, basically, where the Pats are going to control the clock, play great defense, force turnovers, run the ball, take their chunks when they need to, play very conservative football, but it is winning football at the end of the day. And now I don't know. Now with Gerard Mayo as the new head coach, he's taking over play calling duties. Steve Belichick is also gone from the Pats. He was their defensive play caller the last few years. He is left to go to Washington University to be their defensive coordinator. So good for Steve paving his own path right now. But yeah, I have questions about the coaching. And it's not like I'm like, oh, this coaching staff is going to stink, but it's just truly a question mark. All of these people are relatively in their first time positions here. So it'll be interesting to see how it all comes together. It'll be interesting to see how Mayo does calling the plays and not a Belichick. Yeah, a lot of weird for me to say, but there's a lot of excitement in the Pats organization right now, but it's also a lot of question marks where this could be great hirings and Mayo's the guy and this gets them right back on track to being a playoff contender, or they've lost Bill. This defense is going to lose some of their shine, even though I like a lot of the pieces on it. But I guess we will see. This is truly a tipping point for the Patriots right now. I mean, again, they're picking third overall. They're at the start of a complete rebuild. They need a quarterback, obviously, but these next few months are going to be very telling to be like, okay, the Patriots are back on the up and up, or nope, they're staying as a bottom 10 team in this league for at least a few more years now. Let's keep going, though. Bill Callahan, the Browns offensive line coach, has left the Browns. They let him leave, essentially, to go be a coach on the Titans staff with his son, Brian Callahan, who's now their new head coach. So very good for the Browns to do, to see a very unique situation happening here where a father and son can coach together. Little weird that the son is technically his dad's boss, but that's part of the fun. And Bill Callahan is one of the best offensive line guys that they have in this league, so the Titans should feel very lucky with him because that offensive line is crap. So Bill is going to get in there and get his hands dirty, make this Titans offensive line hopefully pretty formidable. Yeah, and Browns now, obviously that leaves them a big hole in their coaching ranks, but Joe Thomas, I think, got reached out to see if he was interested. Not a bad name. I don't know how much he really wants to get back into the coaching, because coaching is a grind. And a lot of these guys, they experience the grind. They played through the NFL. I don't know a lot of them who want to go back to working those long, long days and being on the road constantly and away from their families. I think that a lot of these NFL guys have it pretty cushy in the media right now, where 1-2 spots a week here and there. So yeah, so don't know who's going to be the new offensive line coach, but maybe Joe Thomas. I don't know. That would be a fun one. And we get some retirements now. Buccaneers center Ryan Jensen is retiring from the NFL. He announced his retirement, I think at the end of last season, and then he's like, no, I'm coming back, and then had an injury in August that held him out for the rest of the season. But he is officially done now. Very, very good center for a long, long time. Probably a good Hall of Very Good candidate for this coming summer, but hats off. Excellent career, Ryan. Sad to see it end that way, but a very, very good career. Another retirement here. Teddy Bridgewater is officially done out of the league. A 2014, I think second round draft pick, or was he the end of round one? No, I think he was end of round one. The Vikings traded up. Started off his career relatively hot, looking good. Had some very, very bad knee injuries. And he bounced back, and he showed that he could be a capable starter at points in this league. But yeah, it is no more for Teddy. He is going back to his alma mater in Florida to be their head coach. That's pretty awesome. I've always loved Teddy Bridgewater. He was the 2014 draft was like the first draft I got invested in, and Teddy was my QB1 in that draft. I enjoyed watching him play at Louisville. I enjoyed watching his career with the Vikings and wherever he went, whether it be the Saints. I mean, he was on the Dolphins, the Panthers. Just seemed like a really good guy to have in the locker room. And yeah, Teddy Bridgewater is done. Head coaching is, coaching is high school. That's going to be interesting. That'll be fun. I don't know if coaching is something that he wants to like really get into. And if he does well at his high school, maybe he'll jump up to college. Who knows? Maybe Louisville gives him a job or something like that. But yeah, good for Teddy. Good for Teddy Two Gloves. Very good NFL career. Congrats, Teddy. Another retirement here. Rex Burkhead, former Bengal, former Patriot, and I think the Patriots is where we all really know him from. He is also retiring after a 10-year career, I believe, a Super Bowl champion with those Patriots against the Falcons. That was, I mean, we'll talk about that Super Bowl very shortly, but truly, I mean, just a do-it-all back. He would give up his body in the blocking game. He was sure-handed as a catcher. He was a solid runner. Just truly a Belichick type of player, and he was. I mean, Bill obviously loved those running backs like that, whether it be a Burkhead or a Danny Woodhead or a James White. Do-it-all guys who want to win it no matter what. Burkhead was fun. Burkhead had a great career, Super Bowl champion, but another one of these guys who obviously they won't even be in my Hall of Very Good, but guys from technically my childhood who are now retiring. And again, they're not well-known guys, but for football fans, we know these guys, and I wish them the best in whatever they have in the future. And last note up here, the NFL has announced that after the Thursday night football kickoff for next season, there will be a Friday game in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. First game ever in South America. That'll be very, very exciting. I'm interested to see what like the atmosphere in a place like Brazil would be. I think Brazil obviously has a pretty big NFL market down there for the NFL to be willing to give them a game and give them which should be a good game because we know that the Eagles are hosting the game, hosting in air quotes there. We don't know obviously who they're playing, but that'll be wild. I'm sure that some of like the overhead shots of the stadium and it'll be very cool. It'll be a very, very long flight for some of these guys too. Obviously, time zones stay the same, but it'll be wild flights. And I mean, I guess that's why they're having it the first week in that first Friday, basically. So I think I saw like we're going to get Thursday night football, then we're going to have this Friday NFL Brazil game, and I think college football that weekend is like Texas and Michigan, and then Sunday night football, or then Sunday football, and then Monday night football. We're so far away from it, and we still, like, the season's not even done yet, and I'm already talking about next season, but yeah, that'll do it for the NFL Weekly Update. let's get right into these 10's Super Bowl rankings. So starting off with Steelers Packers in the 2010-2011 season and ending with Chiefs Niners, rather fitting, in the 2019-2020 season. So how I'm going to do this, I'm not going to just kind of go 10 to 1 do the rankings. I'm going to go like chronologically in the game. So I'm going to start with the 2011 Super Bowl and go all the way down to the 2020 Super Bowl. So yeah, I guess let's just start off with the Steelers and Packers Super Bowl. I mentioned it last week, but this was kind of the first one where I had some bets with some friends about who was going to win. This would have been, I think, grade 7. Me, grade 8. Grade 8. This was my grade 8 Super Bowl, I believe. But Steelers 25, Packers 31. And my main takeaway from this game was Big Ben sold in kind of like the worst way possible. I think he had 2 interceptions. Yeah, I mean, I have the stats in front of me. 2 interceptions on the day, and 2 big interceptions. Again, they only lost by 6 points at the end of the day. But yeah, this was my. Sorry, I got the wrong notes up here. Yeah, this was my number 5 Super Bowl of the 2010s. And this was a very good game. This looked like it was going to be a runaway game for the Packers from the very beginning. And then all of a sudden, Charles Woodson gets hurt. Obviously, one of the best corners, safeties, defensive backs this league has seen, former Heisman winner at Michigan. But he gets hurt, and then kind of the Steelers start clawing back. But it seemed that whenever the Steelers made a move, Rodgers was able to answer. But yeah, the Packers defense is the real winner of this game, forcing 3 turnovers and doing it with no Charles Woodson. I think if Charles Woodson was in this game, the Packers would have won this one with relative ease, I guess you could say. But yeah, this was, I mean, going into it, it was Big Ben going for his 3rd Super Bowl versus Rodgers looking for his 1st, and ended up being his only Super Bowl. I mean, he's still playing technically. He's not winning a Super Bowl with the Jets. Who are we kidding, people? But yeah, this was, Rodgers did everything he needed. And I got to talk about this Steelers receiving group from this game. One of the best wide receiving rooms probably like in history, if you just take everyone's like prime zone into account. So we got Hines Ward, Hall of Famer, a little bit past his prime at this age. But we got Hines Ward, we got Mike Wallace, Mike Wallace is probably like the worst guy I'm going to name here. But at that point, I think after this season, he signed his big deal with Miami, and that didn't really work out well. But Mike Wallace in Pittsburgh was a burner, very good player. Then we have guys like Emmanuel Sanders, who obviously went on to be a very good wide receiver, Super Bowl winner with these upcoming Broncos that I will talk about. We got Antoine Randall, the former quarterback turned wide receiver, do-it-all guy. And then we have someone like Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was a rookie that year. He was returning punts, but every time AB touched the ball, you could tell that he was better than these other guys that they were trotting out. And I'm pretty sure one of the receivers got banged up in the game. I forget who, but they started giving Antoine Randall snaps instead of Antonio Brown. Maybe if you would have given AB some snaps, you would have won that Super Bowl. But yeah, this was ranked number 5. There's obviously some very good Super Bowls of this decade, but wasn't a lot of drama in this one. It seemed like the Packers were in command from the start, and they never really let go. So yeah, the Steelers-Packers Super Bowl coming in at number 5 on my ranking. We will move on now to the 2012 Super Bowl. Pat 17, Giants 25, and this one comes in at number 7 in my rankings. One of the lower scoring Super Bowls of this decade, and was fairly entertaining. This was a big defensive matchups. I mean, you look at some of the guys on defense for these teams. For the Giants, we had Justin Tuck. We got a young Jason Pierre-Paul, Osi Umenyiora, Chris Canty. The defensive lines were absolutely insane in this one. On the Pat side, Rob Ninkovich, Vince Wilfork. Yeah, I think those were the guys. Been and then future Patriots head coach Gerard Mayo. Like this was the building of the kind of what we saw for the rest of the decade team for the Patriots. They got Devin McCourty. They got. I thought I saw Donta Hightower there. Never mind, I did not see Donta Hightower there. Either way, this was a battle of the trenches. And the Giants just came out ahead. I mean, we all remember the Mario Manningham pass, the Giants driving down, score a touchdown, and Eli just throws the absolute perfect pass on the sideline for Manningham to toe tap it in to continue their drive down the field. Yeah, this comes in at number 7 for me. It was a good game. It was a very good game. Brady had time in the end to come down and win this one, but some drops from, I think, one Wes Welker drop which was a very bad, uncharacteristic drop from him. Another one from Aaron Hernandez on that final drive. But again, the Patriots had time, and we've seen Tom drive down the field. He just couldn't do it this time. But yeah, no, to me, this was really my first introduction to Tom Brady. I was way too young to remember those first 3 Super Bowls of him. I mean, his third one, I would have been 7. And at that point, I was a hockey fan. Wade Redden was my favorite hockey player. If you don't know who Wade Redden is, I don't know why you would, if we're being honest. Yeah, so this was kind of my first real introduction to playoff Brady, and obviously there was like the wild card games and the divisional, the championships and stuff, but like Super Bowl Brady, and I saw him not being able to get it done. Now, obviously, a lot of factors and some drops and some penalties, but yeah, I wasn't really wowed by my first Brady performance. I think that's fair to say. In this one, what did he finish? 27 of 41, 276, 2 TDs and an interception. Also had a safety in this one. The game started with a safety. Giants punted, pinned them deep. So Brady gets the ball, drops back in the pocket. He's in the end zone and then throws it away to no one. So safety, kind of funny that's how that game started, but yeah, it was a good game. Didn't wow me. Obviously, Manning 2-0 versus Brady, and I mean Eli in Super Bowl games, he was also great in this one. 30 of 40, 296 passing TD, and like this was a very very fun Giants offense here. This is when they had Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs running the ball, the real thunder and lightning duo. I forget how big Brandon Jacobs was, but he was Brandon Jacobs, 6'4", 264. Try finding a running back like that today. That man was a monster, and then Manning was throwing to guys like Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz. I think this was one of Victor Cruz's first years in the league, doing that salsa dance that Victor Cruz does. This was a fun game, and obviously Pats on the other side with Gronk and Hernandez and Welker. And the Gronk and Hernandez duo was, why isn't this working? There we go. Was big for them. I mean, Gronk in this game, only 2 catches for 26 yards, but Aaron Hernandez, 8 catches, 67 yards, and a TD. It would have been, obviously, Aaron Hernandez, very bad person, murderer, but it would have been interesting to see what Bill could have done with Gronk and Hernandez going forward into the future, running those 2 tight end sets, because no one's really tried to replicate it yet, and you need 2 guys like Gronk and Hernandez who are just monsters who can block, but are also just like monsters in the pass game for you, who can get those yak yards. Either way, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but yeah. Pats, yeah. Giants 21, Pats 17 comes in at number 7. Onto the 2013 Super Bowl now. Ravens 34, 49ers 29. And we all remember this game as the blackout game where it seemed like the Ravens, they had all the momentum. They were up. I don't think they were actually up by that much. I think I was building it in my head that they were up by quite a bit. But I think it was. I think it was like 28-13 when the lights went out, and then here come the Niners roaring back to try to make this a game. But yeah, this was really, I mean, we'll start with the Ravens here, but what the fuck off with the chicken fingers ad from Dairy Queen here. Looking PFF. PFR, not PFF. We are not fans of PFF in this house. But yeah, let's just start with the Ravens. I mean, actually, let's start with the coaching matchup. It was the Harbaugh brothers both facing against each other in the Super Bowl. Jim versus John. John got the better of him, obviously. But yeah, this Ravens run by Flacco. I mean, Flacco had an incredible postseason. I'm pretty sure he didn't have any interceptions. I think he had 9 touchdowns in his 3 games that he played, something like that. But he was electric, and someone to not be outdone in this run is a guy named Jacoby Jones, who I think for like a 3-4 year run was the most electric kick returner that the league had since a guy like Devin Hester. I think he returned one in this game too. Yep, he had the longest kickoff return in NFL history. This says 108. I think they said 109 on the broadcast, but yeah, he was incredible for them in this game. He was incredible for them in that AFC Championship game against the Broncos. But yeah, the Ravens team came up big, and just to name some of the guys on the team, so we got guys like Joe Flacco. He was throwing to Anquan Bolden and Torrey Smith, with Ed Dixon and Dennis Pitta at tight end. Run game with Ray Rice, Bernard Pierce, and Vonta Leach. And I mean, the guys on the defense, and this was a couple guys last seasons for this team. Guys like Ed Reed, guys like Ray Lewis, who went out on top on the top of their games, but also had guys like Haloti Ngata, Bernard Pollard, Terrell Suggs, Jimmy Smith. Yeah, this was a very fun team for the Ravens to go against, and this Super Bowl comes in at number 3 for me. It was wildly entertaining, and for someone who was rooting for the Ravens in that game, it was good. It was all the drama, all the Ravens are going to run away from it, and then the blackout drama and having all teams. I think it was a 45-minute delay, and then when it finally gets back on track, here come the Niners, and they're jumping on them, and we'll talk about this Niners team too now, I guess, since. But this was the Kaepernick run, and obviously we know what Kaepernick has gone on to do and become at this point, a little bit of an NFL pariah. But he was incredible during that run. In this one was 16 of 28 for 302 with a touchdown and an interception. Also added 62 yards rushing and a TD. But yeah, he had Frank Gore, he had Michael Crabtree, he had Vernon Davis, he had Delaney Walker, he had old-ass Randy Moss. This was a fun Niners offense and a lot of names that I like. I mean, Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker, both men inducted into my Hall of Very Good. And I'm just talking about it's weird that no team has really tried to replicate the 2 tight end thing. Obviously not to the same extent of the Patriots, but the The Niners also did it very well during that stretch. And then like the guys on defense that they had, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, also Hall of Very good. Justin Smith, Alden Smith. And Justin Smith is one of those guys who does not get enough credit for his career. And honestly, I think he might be a Hall of Very good candidate for this season. Was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All Pro. Either way, I don't have to get into his career, but either way, lots of very good teams, and it came down to the final drive with Cap throwing a fadeaway to Crabtree and it getting knocked away, no good. They would have had time to run the ball and run the ball with Frank Gore, which they've been doing well, but they opted for the pass to conserve clock. Who's to know if it was the right call? I do know one of these Super Bowls we're going to talk about where definitely was the right call to run the ball, but we will get into that in a bit. But yeah, this Super Bowl comes in at number 3 for me, one of the best ones of this decade, in my opinion. And next year up, the 2014 Super Bowl, one of the worst Super Bowls, in my opinion. Well, I mean, it comes in, it's last. It's dead last in my rankings. Seahawks 43, Broncos 8. This game was over the minute it started, basically. Broncos get the ball. Yeah. Broncos start off the ball and bad snap over Peyton's head. He wasn't ready for it. He wasn't looking for it. Over his head into the end zone. Safety, 2-0 Seahawks. And then it was full throttle. We're going for it. This would have been Russ's second year in the league, and he made it count. Was 18 of 25, 206 yards, 2 TDs, out of 26 yards rushing. But they really didn't need to do much in this one because the Broncos just kind of did it to themselves. I mean, there was a safety, there was a pick 6 from Malcolm Smith, who was the Super Bowl MVP in this one. He was also the one who deflected the ball or got the game-sealing interception against the Niners in the NFC Championship game. Yeah, they also allowed, I think, Percy Harvin. He had a kick return to start the second half. Like, it was truly, like, it was over from the very beginning, and it was very tough to see a Peyton Manning-led team go out like that, just totally dominated. And this was the year that Manning, I think he broke the yards record and he broke the TDs record, and this was what the best offense in football really showed up. But yeah, back to the Seahawks. Like, they didn't have to do much on offense. Like, really, Marshawn only had 39 yards rushing and a TD. Like, again, they did enough, but it wasn't. It was the defense, and it was the Legion of Boom who finally get to, or I don't know why I said finally get to talk about the Legion of Boom, but get to talk about the Legion of Boom with guys like Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, Byron Maxwell, and I'm gonna keep naming guys, but that was the Legion of Boom. Those 4 guys right there. Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright at linebacker. They had Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett on that defensive line, Bruce Irvin, and again, Malcolm Smith also. This defense was one of the best of this decade, and they proved it against one of the best offenses this decade has also seen. Yeah, the Broncos on the other side, it was just they got whooped, and the team that had no Sean Moreno, C.J. Anderson, Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Julius Thomas, Eric Decker couldn't do anything. They thankfully scored a touchdown, but yeah, it was very, very embarrassing for the Broncos, and that's why it is my last Super Bowl of this decade, coming in at number 10. And next up, 2015, Patriots, Seahawks. Patriots 28, Seahawks 24. This was a very, very good game, and probably would have been higher if it ended the way that it should have ended, with Pete Carroll giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch and having that be that. But either way, Brady was excellent in this one. 37 of 50, 328 yards, 4 TDs, 2 interceptions. It was truly back and forth all game from these two. The defense is stepping up also a little bit when it mattered. But yeah, this was kind of like a Julian Edelman. Like, now we get to see Super Bowl Jules. He had 9 catches, 109 yards, and TD in this one. Gronk 6 catches, 68 yards, and a TD. I don't know why I'm giving off stats. I probably shouldn't be giving off stats. But yeah, the Super Bowl comes in at number 4 for me for this decade. And again, could have been higher. But I mean, the way that this game ends, it looked like it was going to be another Manning to Tyree helmet catch type play, but no, it was Russ throwing a Jermaine Curse coming down with that ball. I don't know how he came down with it, but it was excellent, putting them right in the red zone. I think inside the 10-yard line. They run the ball with Marshawn. Marshawn gets them to the 2. They got 3 more downs to score a touchdown. Plenty of time left. I think they had a timeout as well. And what do they do the next play? They run kind of a rub route to Curse. And here comes Super Bowl champion, obviously, but because he wasn't Super Bowl MVP, but the guy who won the Pats Super Bowl is what I'm trying to say. Malcolm Butler. And he read the play. He knew what was happening. And he picked off Curse right at the right moment, picked off Russ. And that is the end of the game. If they hand off Marshawn Lynch the ball, they win that game. Like, I'm sorry, they win that game. And it pissed me off. It pissed me off a lot rewatching this game because I forgot that it was second down on the 2-yard line with like less than a minute to go. They had tons of time to score the ball, and not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch, who is just a battering ram who always gets yards after contact no matter what it seems. And no, you decided to throw a stupid little rub route to Curse that gets picked off. Yeah, the Seahawks deserved to lose this one. But yeah, Tom gets his 4th. Tom gets his 4th ring at that point. And again, my second introduction, Tom Brady Super Bowl, was a game that probably he shouldn't have won. And I think you can see the pattern now where there's a reason why I didn't like Brady or consider him the GOAT, was because, I mean, he lost that Super Bowl to Eli and then wins this one when probably they shouldn't have. And obviously, a lot goes into winning a games, and there was mistakes that the Patriots made that they probably shouldn't have, and vice versa on the Seahawks. But the Seahawks had the ball on the 2-yard line with Marshawn fucking Lynch, and we're just like, no, we're not going to hand him off. And he was having a great game too. He had 102 yards and a touchdown. Really, really, really just fucking pisses me off. I think the last thing I have to talk about in this game is Chris Matthews. And if you don't know who Chris Matthews is, you shouldn't. But he was kind of the Super Bowl darling in this one. He had 4 catches for 109 yards. And then after that, didn't really play. He moved around teams, but only finished his career with 176 yards. But, and again, that's something that Chris Matthews could have looked back on and been like, I had 106 yards and a Super Bowl ring. Look at me. But nope, Pete Carroll decided to rob Chris Matthews of that moment and not hand off the ball to Marshawn Lynch. So this game comes in at number 4 for me. Yeah, disappointing. 2016 Super Bowl, Panthers 10, Broncos 24. This was a defensive matchup. This Broncos defense essentially just carrying the corpse of Peyton Manning at this point to a Super Bowl. And Payton was enough of a game manager in this game to allow them to win, and he still stunk. He had 141 yards and an interception in this one. But yeah, it was truly the defense for this Broncos team that was the difference maker. One of the best defenses of this decade, with guys like T.J. Ward, Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, Chris Harris, Malik Jackson, Aqib Talib, Bradley Roby, Shaq Barrett, and like there's more guys that I can mention like too, like a Danny Trevathan, a Derek Wolfe, a Brandon Marshall, like all guys who were very good players in this league at one point or another. I mean, I think I just named off probably at least 3 Hall of Famers from that defense, maybe 4 with Aqib Talib. I'm not too sure. He is in the Hall of Very Good already. I will mention that, but yeah, there was nothing the Panthers could do in this one. Like, it was not their matchup. Cam couldn't be Superman and carry this team like he did that entire season, because this was the Cam MVP year. Cam was unstoppable and made this group of bums look serviceable. Because the guys who Cam was passing to, Ted Ginn, notable first round bust, went on to have a long career. But yeah, Ted Ginn, Corey Brown, Devin Funchess, Jericho Cotchery. He had Greg Olson also, who's probably his only redeemable player here. And then Jonathan Stewart and Fozzie Whitaker running the ball, somehow made it to a Super Bowl. And that just shows how good Cam was during that quite literally like couple year stretch, but he won the MVP that year. He was fantastic, and he almost won the game carrying those group of guys. And I'm just going to say them again. Ted Ginn, Corey Brown, Devin Funchess, Jericho Cotchery were his 4 wide receivers for this game. Just adds to the legend of Cam Newton. Cam Newton, one of the best peaks we've seen from the league. Yeah, but also have to talk about this this Panthers defense, because it's also what kept them in the game. But Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, Shaq Thompson, Josh Norman, Jared Allen, K'Wan Short, Coney Ely had 3 sacks in this one. But yeah, it was just the defense was just way too much for the Panthers to try to overcome. And even though the Broncos offense was equally crap, the Broncos defense was just that much of a difference maker in that game. And that's why they won it. That's why Von Miller was MVP, because what did he finish in this game? I think he had 2.5 sacks and a forced fumble. 2 forced fumbles. Yeah, he was incredible in that game. Yeah, I think my one kind of like note on the game was the game where obviously Cam forced fumble at the end. He has an opportunity to dive on it, and he kind of like steps back, doesn't like fully commit to the ball. Watching it live, it still pissed me off in the moment. He should have dove on the football. Now, I don't think that the Panthers go on to win that game regardless, but like that was quite like, it wasn't the turning point in the game, but that was the end of the game, and he decided not to go for the ball. Regardless, doesn't matter at the end of the day, but yeah, that was the closest the Panthers have been to a Super Bowl, and they haven't even been close to getting back since. And yeah, this comes in at as the ninth ranked Super Bowl. So the Broncos, the 2 times they were in the Super Bowl, put up the worst performances of the decade, in my opinion. And we will go on to the 20s. Or actually, I got one more story. Yeah, the 2016 Super Bowl, I think, was the first year I had some of the boys over to my dad's place in the basement, and I was wearing my Panthers hat, cheering for the Panthers with Moob, and I was like, because again, that was the 2016 Super Bowl, so 2015 season. So I would have been 18 at the time. Still can't drink beer legally in Ontario, but there was some beers that were left downstairs in the basement that I was like, I'll just have those, whatever. Won't have to ask anyone for anything. So I drank those, not knowing that beer could really expire. But yeah, as I was sipping these beers, I think they were like Muskoka beers. Didn't know how old they were, but as I was drinking the game, I just kept getting a headache, more and more of a headache, not realizing it was the beer. And yeah, I felt like shit by the end of the game. Don't really remember a lot of the game. That's why I rewatched it, and I didn't really have to remember much of that because it was a boring, boring game. Yeah, 2017 Super Bowl now. Patriots 34, Falcons 28 in overtime. Again, was one of these games where this was my final straw with Brady being like, yep, I can see he's the GOAT when it matters. He comes up clutch, does what he needs to do. But again, a game that the Patriots should not have won. And watching it back, I just realized how badly Dan Quinn and Kyle Shanahan fumbled the bag at the end of the game. So the so the Patriots were up, or no, the Falcons were up 28-3. Obviously, that's the big thing. They're up 28-3, blew that, but it ended up being 28-21 with I think 3 minutes left, under 3 minutes left, and Matt Ryan throws this absolute like beautiful ball to Julio. Julio, one of the best catches, toe taps on the sideline. Beauty of a throw, puts them at, I think, almost in the red zone. And the next, I'm trying to remember. So they run the ball, 2 yard gain, doesn't really do anything. And then the next two plays, they're in field goal range. You would seemingly think being up by 10 with like 2 minutes to go, you win the game. But what do they decide to do? Drop back to pass. Matt Ryan takes a big sack. Drops like still in field goal range. So it's like, okay, not bad. Second play. Matt Ryan drops back to pass. No one's open, but holding offense, number whatever the hell he was, drops him back even further, drops him out of field goal range now, and they gotta punt it. Then the Patriots get the drive to go down the field and tie the game with a touchdown. They did it. Patriots get the ball to start overtime. They go down the field, score, game is over. Yeah. So again, Falcons should have won this one, and this is kind of why I have some gripes with the Dan Quinn hire for the Commanders, is because people want to blame Kyle Shanahan, and I think that's fine. He went uber conservative in the second half and probably shouldn't have. But it is on Dan Quinn, the head coach, to listen to what Kyle's saying and what he's saying to Matt Ryan, to be like, no, we're not passing the ball here. We're just going to run it twice, kick the field goal, be safe, go win the game. Yeah, but they didn't. Tom wins his 5th Super Bowl and one of the best comebacks ever. I mean, being up 28-3 with like, I think there was like 2 minutes left in the third or something like that. Like, again, a game that they shouldn't have won, but that is just the greatness of this Patriots team and Brady. And can't forget about Julian Edelman with, again, one of the best catches in Super Bowl history, kind of their own Manning to Tyree moment where Brady throws it up, tosses it up to Edelman, Edelman in triple coverage, seemingly balls getting swatted away. He has it. It's about to hit the, let's go, about to hit the ground, and he grabs it right before he hits the ground. It's literally an inch off the ground. And again, that was one of those difference makers where if Edelman doesn't make that catch, the Patriots don't win the game. This was, again, and other than Edelman, that's all Brady had in this one. So you got to give him credit there. Gronk was injured, and then he was thrown to guys like Danny Amendola, James White, Martellus Bennett, Malcolm Mitchell. Malcolm Mitchell is also one of those guys who had a great playoff run and then kind of just disappeared, did nothing. Chris Hogan. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Totally forgot James White. Yeah. 14 receptions, 110 yards, and he was the winner, the touchdown to win the Super Bowl. I don't know why I said that in such a weird way, but and then yeah, on the other side for these Falcons, it was Matt Ryan's MVP year. Uh, Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman rushing the ball, doing a good job. And then yeah, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Taylor Gabriel, Austin Hooper as Matt Ryan's weapons. Just wasn't enough really for the Falcons. But this was also a big defensive battle. Both offensive lines were letting up pressure all day. Trey Flowers had 2.5 sacks. Donta Hightower had a sack. Branch, Jabal Shurd, Kyle Van Noy each had half a sack. Also, just shout out to Kyle Van Noy for just being solid, very dependable his entire career. Came away with a couple Super Bowls because of it. And then yeah, on the other side, this was kind of Grady Jarrett's coming out party. He had 3 sacks. Dwight Freeney had a sack. Courtney Upshaw had a sack. And shout out to Robert Alford, who had a pick six, which should have been the like game sealer. Okay, Pats are done, but nope, is what it is. But yeah, this game comes in at number 2 for me. Again, just mainly because I'm anti-Pats, and that's just kind of my bias. But the Falcons should have won that game. It is what it is. But that game comes in at number 2. 2018 now. Eagles 41, Patriots 33. This was a fantastic game. I remember for this game, Super Bowl party was at my friend Travis's place. We were watching, and I was doing snow removal, like overnight shifts, and it was snowing that night, and I was scheduled for a shift, but I was like, okay, no, like the Super Bowl will be over by then. Me being an idiot and me forgetting that, oh, the game might start at 6:30, but it still ends at like 11 because halftime and all the whatever. So yeah, I had to leave during the fourth quarter to get to my snow removal shift. And I remember just being in the truck, driving to site, watching it on my phone, and seeing, was it Brandon Graham? Yeah, it was Brandon Graham forcing that fumble to make sure the Eagles to clinch that Super Bowl. But this was a very fun game. This was back and forth all game between Foles and Brady. Both played excellent. I mean, Brady had 505 yards in this one. I think that's the Super Bowl record. Nick Foles, 373 yards. Also had a receiving TD. Can't forget about the Philly special. And that's why you go for it on fourth downs. You know, you gotta try to win games. But yeah, this was just kind of, I mean, this was the Carson Wentz MVP year. Then he gets hurt, and I actually saw Nick Foles play the Giants in one of like the Eagles' like earlier starts in that run. So kind of get cool to see that I saw a Super Bowl winning team. Didn't know it at that point because Wentz went down and Nick Foles was the backup, and it's like, okay, let's see what he can do. And Nick Foles went on one of the best Super Bowl runs in history, probably to never be replicated. Who can forget about the legend of Big Dick Nick? But yeah, this was a great game. LeGarrette Blount on the other side for the Eagles after winning 2 Super Bowls with these Patriots. But yeah, and then Jay Ajayi also running the ball there. But yeah, throwing to Nelson Aguilar, Corey Clement, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, Torrey Smith. I don't think I realized that Torrey Smith was a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Good for you, Torrey. And yeah, Brady on the other side. He's got Amendola, he's got Gronk, he's got Brandon Cooks, Chris Hogan, Philip Dorsett. This was truly like the big misfit group for the Pats. Obviously, Edelman was hurt. But yeah, Hogan had a huge game. Amendola had a huge game. Gronk had a huge game. They really just, I mean, they didn't even try to run the ball, really. Which why would you if Brady has 505 yards? But yeah, this was an excellent game, and that 1 sack by Brandon Graham and the 1 forced fumble was ended up being the difference maker. Yeah, this was just, I don't know, not a lot of bad things to say. It was high scoring, was truly just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth of who you thought was going to win. And this is why this comes in at number one in my Super Bowl rankings. I think a lot of it goes into that. I mean, Brady played excellent, the Patriots played excellent, but Nick Foles, it literally didn't matter. Nick fucking Foles, who would have thought? On to the 2019 Super Bowl now. Look at it again. The Patriots. Patriots 13, Rams 3. Boring game. Boring game viewer wise. As a defensive matchup, fantastic. Bill Belichick going against Wade Phillips, two of the best defensive guys the NFL has had, quite literally ever. But yeah, this was just kind of an overall smelly game that the defenses came out to play, and I'll read off some defensive guys on this team. So on the Patriots, you got Stephon Gilmore, Donta Hightower, Kyle Van Noy, Dietrich Weiss, Trey Flowers, J.C. Jackson, Devin McCourty. Yeah, I think those were the key guys. Jonathan Jones also, who's still a very good player for them now. And then you look on the Rams side. Aaron Donald, Aqib Talib, Donta Fowler, and Ndamukong Suh, John Johnson, Marcus Peters, LaMarcus Joyner, Corey Littleton. Yeah, the defenses were absolutely suffocating the entire game. Neither team could really do anything on offense. Like, really, the Pats were running it. Actually, they weren't running it decently well. It's because Sony Michel ripped off a big, big run at the end of the game to really carry it. But again, it was a defensive matchup. This was Jules' MVP performance, 10 catches for 141 yards. He ended up being the difference maker because on the other side, Brandon Cooks was the big recipient for the Rams, 8 catches, 120 yards. But he also had 2 dropped touchdowns in this game. I think one to close out the first half and then one at kind of the end of the game where the first one was just a great play by Jason McCourty to actually get over there because Cooks was just wide open, waving his arms in the end zone. So he did make a play on the ball, but again, Cooks should have probably had it. And then the other one, it kind of went right through the cradle he was trying to make. This was the Todd Gurley year, though, for the Rams. Actually, it wasn't. That would have been the year after. Either way, Todd Gurley, I miss him. He wasn't able to do much in this one, and maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe they should have gotten him more involved instead of giving C.J. Anderson 7 carries. Maybe that should have went to the best running back in football at the time. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, just some fun names to look back on. Like now, this team, Robert Woods, who back 9 of his career right now, but young, very good player for that team. Brandon Cooks, obviously. Josh Reynolds, who is now on the Lions. Gerald Everett, who's now the Chargers tight end. But yeah, these were 2 very, very good teams and defenses going together. And yeah, ended up being 13-3. Was not an exciting game. Again, defensively, the defenses absolutely suffocated them, but that's always not the most interesting thing. It is what it is. And, oh yeah, and it's coming in at number 8 for me. So, again, it was a good game, but like, there was no real action happening. It was just defensive stop after defensive stop after defensive stop, and it's not the most exciting thing. Again, some people love the defensive matchups, but I'd rather see points score than have 16 total points scored in the Super Bowl. Sue me. And finally, 2020 Super Bowl, 49ers 20, Chiefs 31. It's fitting that we're doing this now because that's obviously the Super Bowl matchup coming up. Pat Mahomes' first Super Bowl win. And honestly, it wasn't pretty for Pat Mahomes. He didn't play great in this one, had two interceptions, but again, you see the difference maker in someone like a Pat Mahomes extending the plays, making throws that no other people could. I'm sure he'd like to have a couple of those other throws back, but he was still on it there when you needed to. Money. And that's, I guess, why he won Super Bowl MVP. I was a little pissed off because I wanted Damian Williams, playoff Damian. I bet him Super Bowl MVP, and he should have won because he had 104 yards and a TD and 29 receiving yards and a TD. Should have went to Damian, went to Pat Mahomes. The QB bias, it is what it is. Could have made some nice money that game, but yeah, this was, again, we were at my buddy Travis's place watching the game and was watching with Cam, and Cam was so hyped. He's like, yeah, the Niners are going to win. Same with Travis. Travis is also a Niners fan. But they're watching that game. It's like, yes, the Niners are going to win. Ha, 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 ha. And then here come the Chiefs, come back, go down the field. They go up, and then it's like, okay, Jimmy G, this is on you. You got one more chance. Let's see what you can do here. And he missed Emmanuel Sanders streaking wide open down the middle of the field, missed him, overthrew him somehow by, I think, like 4-ish yards, and that would have put them up. Obviously, Mahomes would have got the ball back with time left to go down and do his own thing. But, and again, I've been saying it, that is the difference in these Niners versus those Niners is Jimmy G couldn't build these moments or couldn't make these moments for himself. What am I trying to say? Jimmy G couldn't lead the team to a victory. He could manage them to a victory, but that's been the difference in these playoffs so far is Brock has time after time not put the team on his shoulders because obviously there's a lot of good pieces around him, but he does the extra thing. He goes the extra mile to make it work for this team. I mean, in the game against the Lions, it was his legs on the ground. The Packers wasn't a great game, but again, on that last drive, he showed up and put up points on the board when it mattered. But yeah, so again, we get the Super Bowl matchup now. Pat Mahomes on his offense. You got Damian Williams, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman, Jimmy G on the other side. Mostert, Debo, Tevin Coleman, Kendrick Bourne, Emmanuel Sanders, Kittle. I'd say one of these offenses has improved for this upcoming matchup, and one of them has got worse. But the defense on the other side is kind of where the difference is, because I'm looking at this this Chiefs defense right now. They had guys on the field like Daniel Sorensen, who not very good at his job. Rashad Breeland, old ass Terrell Suggs, Reggie Ragland, who these are just they're very okay. But yeah, and then the defense for the Niners: Fred Warner, DeForest Buckner, Nick Bosa, Jimmy Ward, Richard Sherman, Eric Armstead, Quan Alexander, DJ Reed. I forgot that DJ Reed was on the Niners. Either way, yeah, it was a good game. It wasn't great, but it comes in at number 6 in my rankings. So to, I guess, list them all off here, we're going with the 28 Super Bowl Eagles Patriots, number 1, Pats Falcons, number 2, Ravens 49ers, number 3, Pats Seahawks, number 4, Steelers Packers, number 5, 49ers Chiefs, number 6, Pats Giants, number 7, Rams Patriots, number 8, Panthers Broncos, number 9, and then Seahawks Broncos at number 10. And that is the 10's Super Bowl ranking. Nice little trip down memory lane. Nice to rewatch those Super Bowls. Nice to have some of those same feelings come back with teams blowing games and big moments when they shouldn't. But that's the game, man. You need a little bit of luck in this league to win because it's not all black and white. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Essentially, I'll ramble on for a little bit more here. So next episode will be the Super Bowl preview. We'll be covering, and I think we're gonna go talk about some awards and stuff because that's also happening. But we'll talk about the game. We'll talk about all the matchups, all the Super Bowl storylines going into it. We'll give out some prop bets. We'll make a parlay for you guys, and yeah. That'll do it for this episode. If you have liked this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And until next time, peace.